What kind of neighbor calls 911 over a fence dispute, only to find themselves trapped by their own sabotage? The sun dipped low over the rolling hills of Willow Creek Ranch, casting long shadows across my sprawling property. I'd built this place from nothing. Every fence post, every barn beam, every inch of earth shaped by my hands and my heart. It was my sanctuary, a refuge from the chaos of the world, where I could breathe free under wide Montana skies. But Karen Whitaker, the HOA president from a new development across the ridge, had other plans. She'd been eyeing my land like a vulture since the day her cul-de-sac sprouted up, her manicured nails itching to impose her rules on my untamed acres. It started with complaints about my unsightly livestock, then escalated to demands about my fence. Too rustic, too tall, too much like it belonged to a man who didn't bow to her clipboard. I ignored her letters, her emails, her passive-aggressive knocks at my gate. But last night, under a moonless sky, Karen crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She tampered with my ranch locks, thinking she could waltz onto my property and dictate its fate. What she didn't know was that my security system, rigged to protect what's mine, doesn't forgive trespassers. When the alarms screamed to life, locking her inside a cage of her own making, Karen's smug confidence turned to panic. And I was already halfway to the truth, ready to unravel her schemes. The night was still, save for the distant howl of a coyote, when I first heard the clank of metal near my front gate. My dog, Rusty, a grizzled mutt with a nose for trouble, growled low, his ears pricked. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped onto the porch, the cool September air biting at my skin. The beam cut through the darkness, landing on Karen's silhouette, hunched over my gate's heavy padlock. She was prying at it with a crowbar, her blonde bob glinting under the faint starlight. "Karen!" I shouted, my voice sharp enough to startle her. She froze, the crowbar slipping from her hands with a dull thud. "What the hell are you doing?" Her eyes darted, wild and wide, but she didn't answer. Instead, she bolted toward her SUV, parked just beyond my property line. That's when the alarms kicked in, a piercing wail that echoed across the valley, followed by the heavy clunk of my automated locks sealing every gate. Karen stopped dead, her hand on her car door, realizing she was trapped inside my ranch's perimeter. Her phone was already at her ear, her voice trembling as she dialed 911. "There's a madman. He's locked me in," she screamed, her words carrying over the still night. I stood there, heart pounding, not with fear but with a cold, steady anger. This wasn't just about a lock. This was about everything I'd built, everything I'd fought for. And Karen had just made the worst mistake of her life. I didn't rush to confront her. Not yet. I knew the sheriff would be here soon, and I needed to stay calm, to piece together why Karen had gone from petty complaints to breaking and entering. My ranch wasn't just a home. It was a legacy. My grandfather had worked this land before me, his hands calloused from decades of labor. When he passed, I swore I'd keep it wild, free from the sterile grip of suburbia creeping in from the new estates. Karen's HOA had been trying to annex my property for months. Claiming my land lowered their property values. They wanted me to pave my dirt drive, replace my wooden fences with vinyl, and God forbid, get rid of my horses. I'd laughed off their meetings, their fines, their threats. But this was war. I walked back to the house, rusty in my heels, and pulled up the security footage on my laptop. The cameras caught everything. Karen sneaking through the brush, her crowbar glinting, her face twisted with determination. She wasn't just meddling, she was sabotaging. I saved the footage, my jaw tight. Whatever game she was playing, I'd be ready when the sheriff arrived. The red and blue lights of the sheriff's cruiser flickered in the distance, cutting through the night like a warning. I stepped outside, my boots crunching on the gravel, and saw Karen pacing near the gate, her phone still clutched like a lifeline. She was shouting into it, her voice high and frantic, painting me as some unhinged recluse. Sheriff Daniels, a man I'd known since high school, climbed out of his cruiser, his face weary but sharp. "Evening, Tom," he said, tipping his hat. "Got a call about a disturbance." I nodded, keeping my tone even. Karen here decided to break into my property. She was tampering with my locks when the alarms went off. Karen's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. That's a lie. I was just checking the fence. It's a safety hazard. Her voice cracked, betraying her. Daniels raised an eyebrow, glancing at the crowbar lying in the dirt. That's so, he asked, his tone dry. I handed him my phone, the security footage queued up. As he watched, Karen's face drained of color, her hands trembling. The truth was closing in, and she had nowhere to run. The footage played in silence, the grainy black and white images damning. Karen's figure moved across the screen, deliberate and calculated, her crowbar working at the lock with a precision that spoke of intent. Sheriff Daniels' eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening as he handed my phone back. This doesn't look like checking a fence, Karen, he said, his voice low but firm. She opened her mouth to protest, but no words came. Her carefully crafted facade was crumbling, and I could see the panic settling in, her breaths coming in short, shallow gasps. I didn't feel triumph, not yet. This was bigger than one night, bigger than one woman's vendetta. Karen wasn't acting alone. The HOA had been pushing for months, their letters laced with veiled threats about eminent domain, about community standards. I'd ignored them, thinking my land was untouchable. But the crowbar, the 911 call, the way Karen's eyes darted toward the ridge where our neighborhood's lights glowed, it all pointed to something deeper, something planned. Daniels motioned for Karen to step aside, his hand resting lightly on his holster. You're going to need to explain this, Karen. And I mean now. She clutched her arms, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. I was protecting the community. His property, it's a blight. The HOA voted Tom. We're taking legal action to clean this place up. My blood ran cold. Legal action? I'd never seen a court notice, never been served. Rusty growled at my side, sensing the shift in my mood. You're saying you broke on my land because of a vote? I asked, stepping closer, my voice steady but edged with steel. Karen flinched, her eyes flicking to Daniels for rescue. He didn't offer one. I didn't break in, she stammered. I was just inspecting. Daniels shook his head, his patience thinning. Tampering with private property is a crime, Karen. You know that. Her lips trembled, but she doubled down, her voice rising. You don't understand. His ranch is dragging us all down. The developers, they're losing money. There it was. The slip. Developers. I caught Daniel's eye, and he gave a slight nod. He'd heard it too. The HOA wasn't just a group of nosy neighbors. It was a front for something bigger. I'd heard rumors about a real estate firm sniffing around Willow Creek, eyeing my land for a gated community expansion. My ranch sat on prime acreage, untouched by their cookie-cutter sprawl, and I'd bet my last dollar they saw it as a gold mine. Karen wasn't just a meddling busybody. She was a pawn. Who's pulling the strings, Karen? I asked, my voice low, cutting through her bluster. She froze, her eyes wide, like a deer caught in headlights. Before she could answer, a new sound broke the tension, the low rumble of an engine. Headlights crested the ridge, and a sleek black sedan rolled up, its driver stepping out with the confidence of someone used to getting their way. It was Martin Hayes, the head of the HOA board, and, I suspected, the real puppet master. Hayes was all polished charm, his suit crisp despite the late hour, his smile practiced but cold. Sheriff, Tom, he said, nodding to us like we were old friends. No need for all this fuss. Karen was just overzealous. His voice was smooth, but his eyes were calculating, scanning the scene like a predator sizing up prey. Daniels didn't buy it. Overzealous with a crowbar? He asked, crossing his arms. Hayes chuckled, but it was hollow. A misunderstanding. The HOA's been concerned about Tom's property. We're just trying to keep the community safe. I clenched my fists, my anger flaring. Safe from what? My horses? My fences? Or the fact that my land's worth more to your developer friends than your entire subdivision? Hayes' smile faltered just for a second, but it was enough. I'd hit nerve. Karen, still trapped by the gate, looked between us, her panic deepening. She hadn't expected Hayes to show up, and now she was caught in the crossfire of something she didn't fully understand. The air grew thick with tension, the kind that hums before a storm breaks. Daniel stepped between us, his voice calm but authoritative. "I'm taking Karen in for questioning. Tom, I'll need that footage. Hayes, you're welcome to come down to the station if you've got anything to add." Karen's face went white, her hands shaking as she realized the weight of her actions. Hayes, though, didn't flinch. He just nodded, his smile returning like a mask. "Of course, Sheriff. We'll sort this out." But as he turned to his car, his eyes met mine, and I saw the warning in them. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. As Daniels led Karen to his cruiser, I felt the ground shift beneath me. My ranch, my home, was under siege, not just by Karen's crowbar, but by a machine far bigger, far hungrier. And I'd be damned if I let it win. The cruiser's taillights faded into the night, leaving me alone with the hum of my alarms and the weight of what I'd just uncovered. Rusty nudged my hand, his warmth grounding me as I stared at the ridge where Hayes' sedan had disappeared. Karen's sabotage wasn't a one-off. She was a foot soldier in a war I hadn't realized I was fighting. Developers, money, power. My ranch was a prize, and they'd do anything to claim it. I walked back to the house, the stars above sharp and unyielding, and sat at my kitchen table, the security footage still looping on my laptop. Karen's face, twisted with determination, mocked me from the screen. But it was Hayes' arrival that gnawed at me. His polished calm, his quick intervention. It screamed of a man who'd planned for contingencies. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. By morning, the ranch was quiet, but the tension lingered like smoke. I saddled my horse, Juniper, and rode out to check the perimeter, my eyes scanning for signs of further tampering. The fences stood strong, but I found fresh tire tracks near the back gate, too wide for Karen's SUV. Someone else had been here, scoping my land. My get twisted. I'd always known the HOA was trouble, but this was calculated, ruthless. Back at the house, I dug through the stack of HOA letters I'd tossed in a drawer, each one dripping with legalese about property standards and community impact. One caught my eye, a notice from 6 months ago, buried under junk mail, mentioning a proposed rezoning of adjacent lands. It was signed by Hayes, with a logo for Pinnacle Development at the bottom. A quick search online confirmed my suspicions. Pinnacle was a real estate giant, known for swallowing rural properties and spitting out gated communities. And Hayes was their local point man. I called my old friend, Lila, a lawyer who'd grown up in Willow Creek and knew every dirty trick in the county. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm but sharp. "Tom, what's got you up at dawn?" I told her everything. Karen, the crowbar, the alarms, Hayes' late-night cameo. She listened, her silence heavy with thought. "This isn't just about your ranch, Tom," she said finally. "Pinnacle's been buying up land across the state, using HOAs as their front. They bully owners into selling cheap, then flip the land for millions. Karen's 911 call? That's their playbook. Make you look unstable, scare you into compliance." My grip tightened on the phone. "They picked the wrong guy," I said. Lila laughed, but it was grim. "They always do. Meet me at the diner in town. Bring those letters." The diner was a relic, its chrome stools and checkered floor unchanged since my childhood. Lila sat in a corner booth, her laptop open, a stack of files beside her. She'd already pulled records on Pinnacle, and the picture was uglier than I'd imagined. They'd bankrolled the HOA's legal fund, funneled through Hayes' consulting firm. Karen was listed as a community liaison, but her signature was on documents authorizing preliminary surveys of my land, without my consent. "They've been planning this for years," Lila said, sliding a folder across the table. "Your ranch is the last holdout. Without it, their expansion's dead in the water." I leaned back, the vinyl seat creaking under me. "So Karen's their fall guy?" Lila nodded. "She's in deep, but she's not the brains. Hayes is, and he's got friends in high places, county officials, maybe even the sheriff's office." My stomach dropped. Daniels was a friend, but money talked louder than loyalty in a town strapped for cash. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ranch felt different, like it was holding its breath. I stepped onto the porch, the air heavy with the scent of pine and earth. Rusty whined, sensing my unease. Then I saw it, a flicker of light near the barn, too steady to be a firefly. I grabbed my shotgun and moved silently, my boots soft on the grass. The light came from a drone, hovering low, its camera lens glinting. I fired a warning shot, and it veered off, disappearing into the night. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from clarity. This was the twist I hadn't seen coming. They weren't just coming for my land. They were watching me, cataloging my every move. I called Lila, my voice low. They're using drones now. It's just got bigger. She didn't hesitate. We need to fight fire with fire, Tom. Give me everything, footage, letters, anything you've got. We're going to war. The next morning, I drove to town with a box of evidence, security footage, HOA letters, even a blurry photo of the drone I'd snapped with my phone. Lila's office was a cluttered haven of legal pads and coffee mugs, but her focus was razor sharp. She spread the documents across her desk, her eyes scanning each one like a hawk. "This is enough to start," she said, tapping a letter from Pinnacle. "They've overstepped, unauthorized surveys, trespassing, harassment. We can hit them with a restraining order and a civil suit, maybe even criminal charges." I nodded, but my mind was on Hayes. He wasn't the type to back down, and I knew the confrontation was coming. I just didn't expect it so soon. As I left Lila's office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the Ridge. 8 p.m. Let's settle this." No signature, but didn't need one. It was Hayes. I spent the day fortifying the ranch, checking every lock, every camera. Rusty stayed close, his hackles up, as if he sensed the storm brewing. By dusk, I was at the Ridge, my truck parked under a lone pine. Hayes arrived alone, his sedan gleaming under the fading light. He stepped out, his smile as slick as ever. "Tom, no need for all this drama," he said, spreading his hands. "We want to buy your land. Name your price." I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet. "You think I'd sell to you after your lackey tried to break in?" His smile didn't waver. "Karen was a mistake. Emotional. You and I, we're businessmen. Let's talk numbers." I stepped closer, my voice low. "You sent a drone to spy on me. You got no business here, Hayes." His eyes flickered, but he recovered fast. "You're sitting on a gold mine, Tom. Pinnacle can make you rich, or we can make this hard." The air crackled with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle. I held his gaze, my fists clenched. "You don't scare me, Hayes. This land's been in my family for generations. You and your developers can go to hell." His smile vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice soft but venomous. "People like you don't win against people like me." He turned to leave, but I grabbed his arm, my grip tight. "If you come near my ranch again, you'll regret it." He yanked free, his facade cracking just enough to show the anger beneath. "We'll see," he said, and drove off, leaving dust swirling in the twilight. Back at the ranch, I called Lila, my voice shaking with adrenaline. "Hayes just threatened me. He's not stopping." She didn't hesitate. "Filed a restraining order tomorrow. And Tom, watch your back." I barely slept that night, my shotgun by the door, Rusty pacing the porch. At dawn, I got a call from Daniels. Karen had cracked under questioning, admitting she'd been paid by Pinnacle to disrupt my operations. She thought it was just intimidation, but the crowbar was her idea, her way of proving her loyalty to Hayes. Daniels sounded grim. "She's facing charges, but Hayes is slippery. We need more to nail him." I hung up, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about my ranch anymore. It was about standing up to a system that chewed up people like me and spit them out. The next day, Lila filed the restraining order, and I posted signs around the ranch. "Trespassers will be prosecuted." But I knew it wouldn't stop Hayes. He was too deep in Pinnacle's pocket, too invested in winning. That night, as I checked the cameras, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure moving near the barn, too tall to be Karen, too stealthy to be random. I grabbed my shotgun and moved fast, Rusty at my heels. The figure froze when my flashlight hit them, a young man, barely 20, holding a can of spray paint. "Don't shoot," he stammered, dropping the can. It rolled into the dirt, the words "sell or suffer" half sprayed on my barn. "Who sent you?" I growled, my gun steady. His eyes darted, terrified. "Hayes." He said it was just a prank. My heart sank. Hayes wasn't just coming for my land. He was turning my neighbor's kids into his pawns. The kid's name was Ethan, a scrawny college dropout from Karen's neighborhood. He stood trembling under my flashlight, his hands raised, paint dripping from his fingers. Rusty growled, but I called him off, my eyes locked on Ethan's. "Talk," I said, my voice low but firm. He spilled everything. Hayes had paid him $50 to vandalize my barn, said it was a message to push me out. Ethan didn't know about Pinnacle, didn't know about Karen's arrest. He was just a kid, caught in a web he didn't understand. I sent him home with a warning, but not before snapping a photo of the spray paint and his ID. "You tell Hayes I'm coming for him," I said. Ethan nodded, his face pale, and stumbled off into the night. I stood there, staring at the half-finished graffiti, my anger boiling over. This wasn't just about my ranch anymore. It was about the people Hayes was using, the lives he was twisting to get what he wanted. I called Lila at first light, sending her the photo of Ethan's handiwork. "This is escalation," she said, her voice tight. "Hayes is getting desperate. We need to go public, expose Pinnacle before they spin this against you." She was right. Hayes had the money, the connections, the charm to turn me into the villain. I'd seen it before, small-town ranchers painted as obstacles to progress, their land snatched for pennies. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Lila organized a town hall meeting, pulling strings to get it scheduled for the next evening. I spent the day preparing, gathering every scrap of evidence. The security footage, the HOA letters, Ethan's spray paint, even the drone photo. If Hayes wanted a war, I'd bring one to his doorstep. The town hall was packed, the air thick with murmurs and suspicion. I stood at the front, Lila beside me, facing a sea of familiar faces, farmers, shopkeepers, families I'd known my whole life. Karen sat in the back, her head bowed, avoiding my gaze. Hayes was there too, his suit pristine, his smile unwavering. I started with the footage, projecting it on a screen for all to see. Karen's crowbar, the alarms, her frantic 911 call. The crowd gasped, whispers rippling through the room. Then I showed the letters, the Pinnacle logo glaring under the projector's light. "This isn't about fences or property values," I said, my voice steady but burning. "This is about greed. Pinnacle wants my land, and they're using the HOA, using us to get it." Hayes stood, his voice smooth as oil. "Tom's blowing this out of proportion. We're just trying to improve the community." But the crowd wasn't buying it. A farmer in the front row stood up, his voice rough. "Improve it for who? Your developer buddies." The room erupted, voices clashing, tempers flaring. That's when the twist hit. A woman I didn't recognize stood up, her hands trembling, but her voice clear. "I'm Sarah, Ethan's mother," she said, her eyes locked on Hayes. "You paid my son to vandalize Tom's ranch. I found the cash in his room, with your business card." The room went silent, every eye on Hayes. His smile faltered, his hands twitching at his sides. Sarah held up the card, Pinnacle's logo gleaming. "You told him it was a prank, but you knew what you were doing. You're tearing this town apart." The crowd roared, their anger turning on Hayes like a tide. He tried to speak, but his words drowned in the chaos. Lila leaned close, her voice low. "This is it, Tom. He's done." I nodded, my heart pounding, not with triumph, but with the weight of what came next. Hayes was cornered, but men like him didn't go down easy. As the meeting ended, Hayes slipped out, his face pale, his charm shattered. I followed him to the parking lot, my boots heavy on the pavement. "It's over, Hayes," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. He turned, his eyes blazing. "You think you've won? Pinnacle's bigger than you, bigger than this town." He stepped closer, his voice a hiss. "You'll sell, or you'll lose everything." I didn't flinch. "Try me," I said. He stormed off, his sedan peeling out into the night. But as I watched him go, I knew this wasn't the end. Hayes was a symptom, not the disease. Pinnacle was still out there, and they'd come for me again. I'd won this battle, but the war was far from over. The town hall left Willow Creek buzzing, the kind of energy that crackles after a lightning strike. People stopped me at the gas station, the feed store, the diner, their voices a mix of anger and admiration. "You stood up to them, Tom," they'd say, clapping my shoulder. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man staring down a bear, knowing it was still hungry. Lila worked fast, filing lawsuits against Pinnacle for trespassing, harassment, and fraud, using Sarah's testimony and Ethan's confession to tighten the noose. Karen pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges, her reputation in tatters, her HOA presidency revoked. But Hayes was still out there, a ghost slipping through the cracks of accountability. Pinnacle issued a public apology, claiming Karen and Hayes acted alone, but I knew better. Corporations like that didn't bleed, they adapted. I doubled down on the ranch, installing new cameras, reinforcing the gates, even hiring a local kid to patrol at night. Rusty stayed on high alert, his bark sharper, his eyes scanning the horizon. Every creak of the barn, every rustle in the brush, set my nerves on edge. One night, as I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee gone cold, Lila called with news. "Pinnacle's pulling back," she said, her voice cautious. "They're dropping the rezoning plan, citing community feedback. But Tom, this isn't a surrender. They're regrouping." I gripped the phone, my eyes on the stars. "What about Hayes?" She sighed. "He's gone quiet. Too quiet. I'm digging into his financials, but it's a maze. He's got offshore accounts, shell companies. This guy's a pro." I thanked her and hung up, my gut telling me Hayes wasn't done. Men like him didn't vanish. They struck from the shadows. 2 weeks later, the blow came. I woke to an email from the county assessor's office, flagged urgent. My property taxes had tripled overnight, a reassessment based on updated land values. The number was staggering, enough to cripple me if I didn't sell. I called Lila, my voice shaking with rage. "This is Pinnacle," I said. "They're strangling me." She didn't sugarcoat it. "It's legal, Tom. They've got friends in the county. But I'm fighting it. There's a hearing next week." I spent the day pacing, my mind racing. The ranch was my life, my blood, my soul. Losing it wasn't an option. That night, I found a note slipped under my gate, typed and unsigned. "Sell now or lose it all." I crumpled it in my fist, my resolve hardening. They wanted to break me. They'd have to try harder. The hearing was a circus, the county boardroom packed with ranchers, townsfolk, even Sarah and Ethan. Lila presented our case, her voice cutting through the bureaucracy like a blade. She showed the HOA letters, the footage, the note, tying it all to Pinnacle's influence. The crowd cheered, but the board was stone-faced, their ties to Pinnacle barely concealed. Hayes wasn't there, but his shadow loomed. Then Sarah took the stand, her voice trembling but fierce. "This isn't just about Tom's ranch," she said. "It's about our town, our homes. If they can do this to him, they can do it to any of us." Ethan stood beside her, his head bowed, his voice quiet but clear. "I was wrong. I let Hayes use me. Don't let him use you too." The room erupted, the board's composure cracking under the weight of the crowd's anger. The assessor's office reversed the tax hike, citing procedural errors, but I knew it was the town's defiance that forced their hand. I drove home under a sky bruised with clouds, my heart heavy but unbroken. The ranch was safe for now, but as I stepped onto the porch, I saw a flicker in the distance near the ridge. Another drone, its red light blinking like an eye. I didn't shoot this time. I just watched, letting it know I saw it. Pinnacle was still out there, and Hayes was their blade. But I wasn't alone anymore. The town was waking up, their voices rising, their fists ready. This wasn't just my fight, it was ours. The weeks that followed were a strange, kind of calm, like the hush before a storm breaks. The ranch stood strong, its fences unbowed, its fields alive with the rhythm of life. Horses grazing, wind whispering through the pines. I walked the land every morning, Rusty at my side, checking for signs of trouble. The drones stopped coming, and the HOA went quiet, their meetings canceled, their signs vanishing from the cul-de-sac. Karen moved away, her house sold to a young family who waved when they saw me. Ethan stopped by one day, his hands in his pockets, his eyes full of regret. "I'm sorry, Tom," he said. "I didn't know what I was part of." I nodded, clapping his shoulder. "You're here now. That's what matters." He smiled, faint but real, and I saw something in him, a spark of the kid he could still become. Lila kept digging, her files on Pinnacle growing thicker by the day. She found ties to county officials, campaign donations, even a leaked email where Hayes bragged about neutralizing holdouts like me. She turned it over to a state investigator, and whispers of a probe started circling. Hayes hadn't surfaced, but I knew he was out there, licking his wounds, planning his next move. I didn't care. I'd faced him down once, and I'd do it again. The ranch was more than land. It was a promise, a line in the sand. My grandfather had taught me that freedom wasn't free, that you fought for what mattered, no matter the cost. And I keep fighting for him, for me, for the town that had my back. One evening, as the sun sank low, painting the sky in hues of fire, I sat on the porch with Rusty, a beer in my hand. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of earth and possibility. Across the ridge, the HOA's lights twinkled, but they didn't feel like a threat anymore. They were just lights, just people, just lives trying to find their way. Sarah had started a community group, rallying neighbors to resist Pinnacle's expansion. Ethan was helping, designing flyers, his guilt fueling a quiet redemption. The town was changing, waking up to the power of standing together. I'd always thought I'd fight this battle alone, but I'd been wrong. Willow Creek was my home, but it was their home too, and together we were unstoppable. I thought about Karen, frozen in my alarms, her 911 call echoing in the night. She'd been a pawn, her fear real, but her choices her own. I didn't hate her, not anymore. She was a lesson, a reminder that fear could twist good people into tools of greed. Hayes was still out there, but he was a man, not a myth. And men could fall. Pinnacle could fall. I'd seen it in the town hall, in Sarah's courage, in Ethan's confession, in the board's retreat. We'd drawn a line, and they'd blinked. The ranch was mine, not because of locks or alarms, but because I'd chosen to fight for it, and because others had chosen to fight with me. As the stars emerged, sharp and bright, I raised my beer to the sky, to the land, to the people who'd stood up when it mattered. The war wasn't over, but this battle was won. The ranch would stand, a beacon of what we could do when we refused to bend. Rusty nudged my hand, his eyes soft but steady, and I smiled. "We're okay, boy," I said. "We're okay." And for the first time in months, I believed it.